In this lesson, I'll be introducing the concept of sweeps, and I'll be showing you how to create this clothes hanger using sweeps. The first thing we have to do is create a new part document. And then we want to start a sketch on the front plane. We want to draw in a center line at the origin. And then we want to switch back over to the line tool and draw in several lines. The first we'll draw in at the bottom at a length of about 8 inches. Then I want to draw in a tangent arc. And rather than going into the tangent arc tool, you can just press A. That'll automatically bring out a tangent arc. Sometimes it'll be in the wrong direction, so you just have to move the cursor back to that end point, and it'll recreate the tangent arc. Once I click that in, that'll bring me back into the line tool. And I want to draw up a line to the center line. And exit the line tool. And then I'm just going to go ahead and drag up the center line. Make the point and the center line coincident by control selecting them. If you drew this in and this arc and this top line aren't tangent, you can control select these as well and add in that tangent relation. Next we'll add in dimensions. The top line is going to have a length of 8.5 inches. The arc is going to have a radius of 1 inch. And then we want to add in a dimension from the back of the arc to the center line. Now normally when you click on an arc and an object, it's going to measure from the center of that arc. If instead you hold down Shift while adding the dimension, that's going to add in the dimension tangent to the back of the arc. And we'll just add in a dimension of 8.25 inches for this. Next, I want to mirror these entities over to the other side. So I'll choose the Mirror Entity option. And we'll select out these 3 lines. Next, I want to mirror this about the center line. And click OK. And the path we're creating requires that this line actually extend a little bit past the merge point there. And instead of deleting this out, I'm just going to click on it and choose the Construction Geometry option. That option is also available in the Property Manager on the left in the For Construction box. And then we'll draw in a line parallel to that construction line. Then I'll add in a tangent arc, once again by pressing A, and another line, and another tangent arc. And I'll just exit the line tool by double clicking. Next I want to add a few dimensions and relations to fully define this. So I'll select the 2 points of the arc there, make them horizontal. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a dimension to the arc, give it a radius of 1.25 inches. And I want this arc to have the same radius as our top arc, so I'll control select those 2 and choose the equal. And for arcs, the equal relation will make the radius of the arc equal, but it won't make the arc length equal. The last 2 dimensions, we need a length from this merge point to the arc. That'll be 1/4 inch. And this point to the center point of the arc should be 3 inches. From there, I'll go ahead and exit out of the sketch. To create a sweep, you need a profile and a path. In this case, we already have the path. Now we just need to create a profile. For that, we need a plane to sketch it on. To create the sketch for the profile, I'm going to choose the top plane and use it to create a reference plane by holding down Control and clicking on one of these points and dragging it out. By default, that'll create a parallel plane at whatever distance you drag that out to. For the second reference, I'm going to choose this top point and click OK, and that'll automatically create a plane parallel to the top plane and coincident to that point. And you'll notice that I created that plane normal to the arc and this point, which is our starting point of the path. And you'll generally want to create your sweeps based on the starting point and the starting arc of your path. So I'll go ahead and create a sketch on that plane, and we'll sketch in a circle at this point. And then we'll add in a dimension of 0.3 inches. I'll go ahead and exit the sketch. And from there, we're going to come into the Features tab, choose Swept Boss Base, and you see that it has two options there, Profile and Path. And the profile here is highlighted, and the path is highlighted as well, so you know which one is which. I'll go ahead and select the profile, and then I'll attempt to select the path. Now generally when I select a path for a sweep, it'll select the profile by itself, but when it sees multiple profiles, it brings in what's called the selection manager. In this case, I'm going to try to select out the profile. It won't allow me to do so. And the reason for this is the path itself can't cross itself or be coincident to itself. So we're going to have to make a modification to the sketch. So I'll go ahead and exit out of the sweep, and then I'll edit this sketch. We're going to go ahead and modify this line. I'm going to turn it into a construction geometry, and then we'll draw in another line parallel to this construction geometry. Next, we'll add in a dimension from here to that center point. And this dimension can be as small as you want it to be. The only thing it can't be is 0, so we'll make it 0.001 inches. And that should allow our sweep to complete. So now going back into the Swept Boss Base feature, we'll choose the profile out once again and select the path. And you'll notice this time it selects it out and shows a preview. I'll go ahead and click OK. And we can see we now have our completed sweep. If we actually analyze this sweep a little bit more closely, by clicking on this face, you'll notice that the entire face is actually inside of the other two bodies here. And that's actually going to be a problem later on when we're creating a feature called a rib. It's actually going to see that entire face and have trouble terminating on the ends of these bodies here. So we'll go ahead and make another modification of this. I'll go ahead and go into the path sketch, and we'll modify this dimension out to be 1 inch. And click OK. Next, we'll add an extrusion so that this body terminates on the two bodies here. And I'll just go to Extruded Boss Base, choose this face as the sketch plane, and then once again I'll choose the face and choose Convert Entities. And that's going to convert over that circle onto this sketch. Then I'll exit the sketch, and I'm just going to go ahead and change the end condition by right-clicking and choosing Up to Next. And that's going to terminate the extrusion on this body over here. Click OK. And now we can see when we click on the face that it actually does now terminate on this side of the sweep. From here, if we take a look at our completed clothes hanger, we can see that we need to add 2 hooks on either side, also using sweeps. So I'll go back into the part. And the first thing I'm going to do is hide out this plane. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and show our path sketch. It's a little bit easier to work with here. And go to the front plane and create a new sketch. From there, I'll draw a line down from the upper line there. Make it vertical. And then draw in a tangent arc as well. Next, we'll add in dimensions to our path here. We'll give this a height of 3/4 of an inch. Give this a radius of 1/4 of an inch. And lastly, we'll add in a dimension from this point to the merge point there and set that at 5.5 inches. We also need to constrain the end of the arc there. So we'll go ahead and click on the point and the end of the other arc point and make them horizontal. And then I'll go ahead and exit the sketch. The next thing we need is a profile. And to create the profile, we're going to create a reference plane. We can create that plane either at this point or at the top point here. It doesn't really matter. So I'll go ahead and create a reference geometry and choose a plane. And as the first reference, I'm going to choose this arc. And as the second reference, I'm going to choose this point. And that's going to create a plane normal to this arc and coincident at that point. And click OK. And then I'll go ahead and draw in the profile by creating a sketch, choosing the circle tool, and drawing in a circle at that center point. Lastly, we just have to add a dimension to this, and that's going to be 1/8 of an inch. And then we can exit the sketch. From here, I'm going to go ahead and hide the plane and use the sweep feature once again and choose the profile and the path and click OK. The next thing we want to do is put rounded ends on both sweeps, the end of that hook there and the end of this top hook. And we'll start with that top hook. Next, I'll create a sketch on the front plane. And we're going to use a Revolve feature to actually create this cap. So we want to draw in a circle at this point and make it the same diameter as our edge there. I'm going to go ahead and make those two tangent. And apparently that doesn't work. Go ahead and delete that tangent and choose this inside edge to make those two tangent. And that makes the diameter of these two circles the same. Next, I want to create a line from this center point to the outside of the circle and from the center point to the bottom of the circle there. And that inside quarter is going to be the profile for our revolved feature. So we can go ahead and remove out the excess using the trim entities. In this case, we'll select the power trim option and just drag the mouse across to trim away the excess. From here, I'll go into the Features tab, choose the Revolve Boss Base, and just choose that center line as the axis of revolution. And we'll go ahead and click OK. From here, we'll create the end cap on the other hook. And we're going to do that by drawing a sketch directly on this face. So once you create a new sketch, if this face isn't already selected, go ahead and select the face and choose Convert Entities. Then we're going to draw a line across the center of the circle there. And we just want to make sure that this is coincident to the center point there. And we'll go ahead and just make this coincident to one of those 4 quadrant points on the circle. Lastly, we want to use the trim entities to remove out one side of that circle. And we'll go ahead and exit the sketch. From here, we'll choose the Revolve Boss Base. I'm going to go ahead and flip the direction in this case. Choose this as the axis of revolution. And instead of 360 degrees this time, I'm going to choose 180 degrees. And I'm going to flip that once more. Okay, there we go. And go ahead and approve that change. And you can see we now have that end cap for both hooks. From here, we'll mirror over the sweep and the revolve. And because we drew up the center line normal to the origin, the right plane is going to serve as our mirror plane. We'll go ahead and go into the mirror feature and choose the sweep and the revolve. And because I had the right plane already selected when I created the mirror feature, it automatically brought that in as the mirror face. Lastly, I want to check the geometry pattern box because we're retaining the same geometry on both sides. Click OK. And the last thing we want to do to finish up the part is add in a couple ribs to support the center of the hanger. So now we'll go ahead and choose the rib feature and select the front plane as our sketch plane. And I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit easier to work with by going normal to that. And we'll go ahead and zoom in here into this area. I'm going to choose the 3-point arc tool and draw an arc coincident to the two sides here. And then I'll go ahead and give this dimensions. This will have a radius of 3/8 of an inch. This is going to have a distance of an inch from this point, if I can select it. Sorry, 3/4 of an inch. And lastly, this top point is going to have a dimension of 1 inch from the top there. Next, we'll go ahead and exit the sketch. And by default, it automatically tries to select the option that you're most likely trying to use. In this case, you have two options. You can choose to create a rib parallel to the sketch or normal to the sketch. In this case, the normal to the sketch option isn't going to work, and the parallel to the sketch is what we want. You can also choose what side the material is going to end up on. You can choose the left, the right, or the center. In this case, we'll stick with the center. And I'll set this to a dimension of 0.05 inches and click OK. If the material was pointing in the wrong direction, you can just go ahead and flip material side and populate the rib there. Next, we'll create the rib for the bottom of our cross there. I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch on the front plane, and once again go normal to that. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw out a line that's horizontal and give it a dimension of 1/2 inch from the top there. And then I'm going to go into features and create a rib. And you'll notice this time that the endpoints of the sketch don't terminate on the part itself. The rib feature will automatically populate a rib up to what's normal to the sketch. In this case, once again, we'll flip the material side, and it's going to populate a rib all the way out to this outside edge. I'll go ahead and click OK, and that'll add in the rib. In the case of the arc, I made the endpoints of the sketch coincident to the edges, just because with arcs it's a little bit more difficult to predict how a rib is going to terminate on an edge if you don't have it coincident to those edges. So there we have our completed clothes hanger. I'm going to go ahead and hide out this sketch. The last thing we'll do is change the appearance of the hanger, and just by going into the top of the part and clicking on the appearance button here, I can change the color. In this case, the hanger I have on my desk is white, so I can select out white or any other color I want. You can also come into the appearances, and in this case I have a plastic clothes hanger. So I could choose a, let's say in this case I have about a medium white gloss plastic. I can drop that appearance on to the part and click OK.